So the Tigers are 9-0, and they haven't done this since the 07-08 season. But what's so impressive is they're not just 9-0 beating up on cupcakes. They learned their lesson last season when they put up a 23-10 record and missed the NCAA tournament. And yeah, a lot of it was because of bad losses, but the real reason was because they had one of the worst non-conference strength of schedules in the entire country, outside of the top 300. So they overcorrected this year, but I don't mean that like overcorrected to a fault. They corrected big time, one of the toughest non-conference schedules they could possibly schedule. They've faced Boise State at home. They're ranked 84th in KenPom right now. They would go they went to Alabama. They went to Pittsburgh. That's an ACC game. They hosted South Carolina, which they play every year, but unfortunately, South Carolina got much better. And then they went on the road, or to Canada, I guess, a neutral site, and played TCU. And they've won all those games. So far, they have 5 wins against top 100 teams. They have 4 wins against top 60 teams. They have 2 excellent road wins, one being an ACC win against Pittsburgh, the other being on the road at Alabama. Alabama is currently number 13 in the KenPom rankings. They just about beat Purdue. They ended up falling short pretty much because of Zach Edey for Purdue. But nonetheless, Clemson's in a great position. Next Saturday, they go to Memphis. Another chance. That'll be a chance at a top 40 win on the road. So obviously picking up those wins, doing it against great teams, getting resume wins is awesome. But as part of that, we've also learned just how good this team is. A couple things that stood out to me so far through 9 games. One is PJ Hall is much better than he was a year ago. We knew he was limited from coming off that knee injury, where he tore his knee. He came back against South Carolina, but he played limited minutes, and he wasn't quite as athletic. But now we're seeing him at 100%, and I didn't realize just how limited he was. He's averaging 20.5 points, 7.6 rebounds per game, but really you got to watch him to see the difference. He's up about 5 points and 1 or 2 rebounds per game. But when you watch him, he's much better on defense. He's up about a block and a half from where he was a year ago. In part because he's jumping higher, but also because he has the speed and agility to get to where he needs to go and do it without fouling when he gets there. So he's blocking a lot more shots, much better on defense. He was a good 3-point shooter last year. He's even better this year, knocking him down at 40%. But what's helped elevate his game is he has the quickness to take guys off the dribble and be a threat, driving, shooting from 3, and of course posting up, which is his bread and butter, using post moves, his hook shot. That more well-rounded game, now that he's healthy, makes him a star. He's Clemson's best player. He's one of the better players in the ACC. So he's Clemson's, go-to guy. But they have a ton of depth. One of the guys, and this is a great player development case, junior Ian Schieffelin, starting power forward. He's an elite rebounder now. He's averaging 8.3 points, 9.8 rebounds. He's not going to post, 20 points a night like PJ Hall. He doesn't quite have that same level of touch or speed, really, touch around the rim or speed to get there. But he is a fighter. He's strong. He's tough. He's the best rebounder on the team, better than Hall in that regard. And he's the most efficient offensive player on the team per KenPom's offensive efficiency metric, only by a hair over Hall. But nonetheless, he's averaging 75% from the line, 54% from 2. He doesn't shoot many threes, but he's 5 for 8 from 3 on the few that he has shot. He has been just a great team player, all around critical player for this team. His development has been critical. They wouldn't be 9-0 without him. And also just a joy to watch. Maybe my favorite player, just a guy who goes out and just fights for offensive rebounds. He's by far the best offensive rebounder on the team. Just kind of a junkyard dog in that regard, but more skilled than just, a physical kind of dog in there. He can knock down a 3. He can be off the dribble, a talented guy on top of being, the tough guy, elite rebounder. And then there's Joe Girard, big-time transfer, came in for his 5th year after playing under Coach Jim Boeheim at Syracuse. Obviously, he retires, and so he goes. Joe Girard enters the portal. It was between Clemson and LSU. He chose Clemson in large part because he really wanted to get back to the Sweet 16, something he did at Syracuse, and he really bonded with the players and believed in how good this team could be. And through 2 games, he was 2.5 games. He was struggling. Clemson was getting blown out by Davidson, and he was looking terrible. And I admit, I started to question, like, is he uncomfortable in this offense? Are we in trouble? Are we about to lose to Davidson and this big time transfers? Can't figure it out. And then he went off in that game. He led Clemson to a huge comeback victory over Davidson. He's gone for 15 or more points in 5 of 7, including that game against Davidson. His average is all the way up to 14.4 points per game, 3.4 assists. He's a much, much better distributor than I thought. I thought he was kind of just a shameless 3-point shooter who would just, chuck it, but do it at a good clip, so it was okay. And he is that, but he's also a great passer. He's got kind of these, even though he's only about 6'2", he's good in the post and can use his body and control his body in a way to get good points around the rim too. Shooting 44.4% from 3, which is awesome. Good facilitator. Really had one of his most impressive games against TCU in Toronto. Chase Hunter really struggled. I mean, he came into the game 5 for 20 in his last couple and went 0 for 7. Chase Hunter struggled. He has not been good, scored no points against TCU. And Joe Girard stepped up with Hall on the bench with foul trouble, with Chase Hunter pretty ineffective, just couldn't make a shot for whatever reason, was turning the ball over a lot. And Girard stepped up, scored 21 points, but was also the key facilitator and point guard for big stretches of that game. Was really, really impressive. Clemson loses that game without him. And Clemson needs Chase Hunter to get back to his normal play. He's a great player. He's just slumping. But the thing about this team that is a lot better than last year's team, despite losing Hunter Tyson, who was an excellent player, despite that, they have more depth. They're playing without Alex Hemingway, who's hurt, and Jack Clark, who's hurt, and they still had Chase Hunter struggle, and yet they were still able to beat a top 40 team in TCU in a neutral site. And that's something I don't know if they could do last year, or frankly, almost any year that I've ever watched Clemson basketball. I think this is, you have the 2017-18 team that won 2 games in the NCAA tournament, New Mexico State, and then Auburn for losing to Kansas. And you have what was my freshman year in college. This was a 07-08 team. There was the last team to start 9-0. They were a 5 seed. They lost to Villanova as a 5-12 upset, which was a bad draw for Clemson. But those are probably the 2 best Clemson teams I've ever seen. This team might be better than those. And of course, you don't know what draw you're going to get in March Madness. If you're lucky enough to get there, you have no idea what's going to happen. The 2017-18 team ended up playing New Mexico State, who was fine, but not a super, not Villanova as a 12 seed. And then they got an Auburn team who had a lot of injuries, and they blew them out of the water. Clemson's Elite 8 team from the 80s, they had a fairly fortunate draw too, with a bunch of mid-majors. I think it was like BYU, LaSalle, teams like that. So we'll see what kind of cards they're dealt. But this team, for as great as they are, memories are made, and you remember about what you do in March. Coach Brownell, in his entire tenure, has never won multiple ACC tournament games, and he's only won multiple NCAA tournament games that one season against New Mexico State and Auburn. So we'll see what they can do in the end, what kind of payoff they can get. But right now, you just want to get the best seed you can get, and I think it's quite possible. I'm seeing projections of 3 and a 4 seed. They're 1 game into it. They had that early Pittsburgh game. They haven't even really started ACC play. So it's way too early. But could they be a 3, 4, or even just a 5 or 6 seed? I definitely think they can. I think this team is talented enough, deep enough to be, a 5 seed. And you could make a run as a 5. So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. Again, they're playing at Memphis next Saturday. I don't know if they'll get to 10-0, but this is a really good team. So don't miss out. I know that you've probably been burned a lot of times by Clemson basketball, but this may be one of the best teams of our lifetime. So don't miss out on them. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. We're going to try to do some more basketball content, as this team definitely merits it. But thanks for watching. Like this video, and go Tigers.